All right, cool. I figured that what I can do is I can leave the YouTube video up later, and then you can refer back to it if you need be in the future. And then hearing my voice would be helpful. I wish there was a basically what you do is so we just created a new project in Unity, right? That is using 2019.4, and feel free to stop me if you have any questions at any point. And so you can go to you then have to go ahead and add that little plugin that allows you to upload to Altspace, which I believe. Mm-hmm. Yes. Yeah. Okay. Well, you're gonna need to have a plugin to be able to upload to Altspace VR at some point. And so the plugin. Yeah. Yep. So there's the uploader 0.8.6. So if you click open on that, it'll load a few things. Um, it's not super easy. Um, yeah. So then when I hit the import button, it creates this extra like little uploader, thing that says, "Hey, do you want to import everything?" And you say, "Import everything." Cool. Yeah, that's for being able to upload things to Altspace. It creates a few folders in your assets section at the bottom of the screen. Cool. So, anyways, another thing I do typically, yeah, we're gonna do the full gamut, because the last step of going to Altspace isn't too difficult. So I'm gonna go ahead and delete, I'm gonna delete the main camera because there's no reason for the main camera. Then if we go ahead and not drop my mouse like a crazy buffoon, then you can go to your sketch. So I'm gonna go to the folder where this SketchUp model is in, and grab and drag it and drop it into Altspace. So I'm gonna create a new folder. I'm gonna call this, um, building or the 3D model. Yeah, 3D model. So then go into here. I'm gonna go into my file directories, and I'm gonna go find the file, which I believe I put under GD 3D, not 3D prints, 3D stuff, 3D downloads. No, SketchUp. I even have a whole folder called SketchUp. Limitless Church 3D and models and version 3. Cool. Click and drag that into here. So you follow along so far, right? Still there? Okay, cool. So I'm just gonna click and drag and drop this into the current scene. You went to assets, import assets or something. Yeah. Um, yeah. I personally just drag and drop the SketchUp file in, which which mhm. It'll do its own auto conversion program, and you'll notice that if we look at the model, the backboard is a darker color. The entrance has that bluer tint to things, but we're still missing out on like that brick texture or the cement or the pavement. Even the white lines between the pavement is gone, which is kind of annoying. So we want to fix that, right? To fix that, what I do is I expand this out. and you'll notice that there's a lot of materials here, right? So I go ahead and select all the materials by, click on the first one, hold down Shift, click, and then click on the last one. Then if I right click on it, I can go ahead and, what is it? Extract from prefab. Cool. So the quick and dirty definition of what extracting from a prefab is a prefab means if you edited the SketchUp file, it would automatically reconvert the file in Unity once you hit the save button in SketchUp, which is pretty cool. But once we extract the materials from prefab, if you ever, that auto syncing feature between SketchUp and Unity no longer applies because it's no longer a prefab. Cool? Yeah, that's the quick and dirty version. You don't really need to know all that. So the next thing is, now that you have all these materials, right, you need to get the texture images from SketchUp. So to do that, I go to SketchUp. Yep. You have to expand the model to get to those kind of things. Usually, that little, yeah. See, you can see that I'm clicking on that now. Yeah. Cool. So then I'm gonna go ahead and go into SketchUp, and I'm gonna go File, Export as 3D model. And if I export it as a DAE file, a Kaleido file, it will automatically make a second texture folder that has all the textures. So I'm going to go ahead and go back to my famous folder, go to exports. We're going to call this like demo, and then hit export. It does its little exporting thing. Whoop-de-doo. Now if I go to that folder, I should see, oh look, there's now a folder called LCV3 demo and a DAE file with word demo. If I go into that demo folder, I should see a lot of individual JPEGs, not one giant texture, which is very different from what you were describing. Now you'll probably notice that if I created a material twice, like white wall for example, even though I'm only using this first white wall.jpg, it created a second white wall image for some reason. So those can kind of be ignored, the underscores ones and whatever, or the underscore zeros, or the underscore, or twos in this case. Street asphalt, white wall, and sanctuary. But for my purposes, I just, for simplicity's sake, I just copy them all anyways. Boop. So go ahead and grab all those textures, drag and drop them in here. And now comes the fun part. You go ahead and select, what is it? So default material, we leave as a default material. Then booth table, we should see a booth table texture on the far left. So I can go, and then in the top right is all of the settings for that material. The albedo, the metallic reflectiveness, the normal map, the high map. So the albedo one is the actual texture, the RGB raw files. So while you've got booth table selected, click and drag the texture, the JPEG, onto the albedo, which is harder because this is really not liking me. Let me go ahead and get rid of this frame debugger, close tab. There we go. So click and drag, albedo. So now, if I'm in Altspace, which you can't really see it because it's in the shadow of my sun, let me go ahead and click on my sun, click on E to go to rotation, go ahead and rotate it so it's facing more downward, not that downward, like that. I can see I now have a texture in Unity of my SketchUp, from my SketchUp file. Did that follow so far? Yeah. It's in the shadow, unfortunately. But so now I just do this for the every single one. Yeah, I just apply these textures to every single material. And what's nice is that the material name is pretty much the same as the texture name that's exported as. Cool. So I select entrance brick. I click and drag entrance brick onto the albedo. And now we have bricks. Cool. And so that literally I'll do this. I just add the cement. I'm going to go add the railing because the railings have their own metallic texture. The front bark, which adds that little bark on the far right. The lobby shelves have their own albedo, so on and so forth. Any questions while I'm just casually applying these? Mm-hmm. Poo, poo. And what's nice, yes. Mm. Yeah. All right. So you'll notice that way over you were asking questions about scale conversion between SketchUp and Unity, which I'm just saying out loud so that the YouTube video will still remember that was the question. The the You can see this large cube is 1 meter by 1 meter by 1 meter. This smaller one's 1 foot by 1 foot by 1 foot, and then I think this really small cube is 1 inch by 1 inch by 1 inch, and this really small cube over here is 1 centimeter by 1 centimeter by 1 centimeter. Cool. So I had to do my own testing, and I found that 1 unit in Unity converts to 1 meter in real space. Cool. And so, like, if I, move the position of the whole church forward by 1, that's going to move, or 11, that'll move it 11 meters to the right in the X position. Cool? So that's what the Unity's unit scale is. Now, when you take a SketchUp model and convert it, what happens is the SketchUp model defaultly is in feet. So, or no, sorry, inches actually. So every 1 unit in SketchUp is defaultly an inch. So then my first experience was that when I imported the SketchUp model was it took up like it was huge. I was literally, I was 2 inches tall. you know, because 2 meters converted to inches, 2 inches is 2 inches tall. So I then ended up doing. I think I like did a quick math conversion, right? Where I was like, okay, so how many inches are in a meter, right? Inches in meter. And so there's 39.371 inches in a meter. So I copy that, and then I just quickly threw in the scale, and then scaled it up. Cool? Or scaled it down or something. Yeah. That's how I did it. But then I realized if I go into the SketchUp model, I can go ahead, instead of doing everything in feet, you can set the project file to have everything in meters. Cool. The metric system as. Oh, perfect. So I found when I converted using meters in SketchUp, when the project file is in meters, that it would convert 1-to-1. That was my experience. And so that's why I'm not having to worry about conversion anymore because I set the LCV3 to a metric system for the moment. Cool. But, we'll find out soon enough if it's off scale. To move around in the space, you can use the mouse wheel to move up and down, press down the mouse wheel to pan, and and then I think there's like right click to rotate. But the rotation is very different than SketchUp, where you rotate, yeah, because SketchUp always rotates around like an anchor point of sorts, right? Whereas in Unity, it's always rotating as if you're in walking mode in SketchUp, where your anchor point is yourself. um, if you can always do orthographic views, or well, I guess they're not technically orthographic, but you can always like adjust your rotation using this little cube in the top right. I think they did that originally to help out like touchscreen users. But who knows? Who knows? Alright. I should set the position back to 0, 0, 0. And go ahead and I'll leave this directional light going this way. Got it. Okay. Anything else? You'll notice that the directional light that was defaultly put in has a very yellow tint, so I'm just going to set that back to a white color because I can. So I just, I selected the color thing and go like that. Big deal. Okay, cool. So I believe that Unity has a textured correct 3D model. Now, unfortunately, there is no colliders built into this. So if I built the world right now, you would fall infinitely. Cool? So to add colliders, what I do is what I do to add colliders is I twirly down the LCV3 object, then I select all the sub-objects because each layer in SketchUp makes a sub-object in Unity. Cool? And notice how all of the orange now selects the entire object as opposed to when I just clicked on this top one. It defaulted to the most recently created layer in SketchUp, which was my 3D scaled cubes in the back. Okay, backtracking. Yeah, it's just the hierarchy in the top left, and then there's a little twirly thing, which allows you to access the sub things, which when it highlights everything in orange, that means that you're selecting literally everything. Each of them I think is a layer specifically and a component. So as you can see here, I have like court walls, exterior walls, first floor, internal walls, stuff like that, as well as I have each of those layers be one component in that SketchUp model. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Exactly. So like let's say I wanted it so for funsies, let's say what's something I want people to be able to walk through. I'm gonna let people walk through this. Well, I hate directional lights in Unity. There's no ambient light. Let's see if I go here and rotate this so I can see indoors. You see how there's like this wall back here? No? Yeah. I'm going to make that so you can walk through that to get into the sanctuary. So that way we'll have an example of what it looks like to not add a collision box to something. So court walls, I'll add a collision box to. On the far right is, everything in that the court walls has, which it has a mesh renderer with its own sub-elements, with its own materials, with its own transform and stuff. You could literally, if you wanted to, you could move these sub-objects in Unity to I just moved my court wall to the center, right? But I don't want to do that because that would be dumb. So if I can just go edit, undo. Um, but what you can do is you can add a component, which allows called a mesh collider. So I always get to it by just searching for collider. And there's like box colliders, there's capsule colliders, but really the mesh collider is the one that's going to be precise. So what that does is that basically copies and pastes the mesh of the 3D model and makes that into a little collider. So to show you, that's what the mesh collider looks like. Mm-hmm. It's already built into Unity as a component. Yeah. All right. No, no worries. I'm hoping that this helps bring things to light. And that's why I started with creating a project from scratch, so you know exactly what I'm doing and what settings I'm changing. Yeah. So all I did was select the court walls object, hit add component, mesh collider, and then it created this little mesh collider right here, based off of all this. Cool. And then I can visualize the mesh collider by just temporarily turning off my mesh renderer up here, which is kind of useful sometimes. Cool. Yeah. All right. So the you're supposed, well, not easily. There's this little play button up here, and if you hit play, it's supposed to let you walk around the model. But you need to have a camera object in your hierarchy. So you go over here, you go to camera, and then you have to add a component that I don't know the name of that allows you to walk in, I think it's physics 2D, rigid body, and then another thing. Mm-hmm. Uh, I so in here I've been calling them layers and components. So yeah, yeah. If you make it one thing, yep, yep. Mm-hmm. Yeah, yep. That is definitely an effective means of putting all of your things that you want to collide into one layer and one component in SketchUp will then, when you bring it into Unity, be one selectable piece that you can just go ahead and click on this, go to add component, type in collider, and then select mesh collider. Cool. Um, yeah, we're almost done, honestly. So if I can Like we're like what 15 minutes away probably. Um, so so if I select this, yeah, that's the interior wall. So I'm gonna select everything but my interior wall by holding down Control, and then I'm gonna hit Add Component, Mesh Collider. So now I've added all the collisions for everything but my internal walls so that people can phase through into the sanctuary. Sounds good. Defaultly, anything that is, what's its face? Anything that's collidable in Altspace, you can teleport onto by default. If you go into the build settings of your model, you can actually mess around a lot with that. Okay. You can make it so that some objects you can't teleport onto, but are still collidable. Yeah. So, and yeah, you can feel free to share your models, and I can upload them at a later point. So you just saw that I went to Altspace VR, build settings, and then that created this little pop-up that I just dragged and dropped next to this inspector because I find that's a pretty good spot for it. I go and I logged in with my username and password, and then I went ahead and went under templates, and I hit load templates, and you can see all the templates that have been shared with me, as well as a few of the ones I've made, like the LCV3, the LCV1 that we're currently in, and a few other ones. So, cool. There's a settings panel. Which if you disable auto layers, then that allows you to manually define whether a collision box is teleport ontoable. But that's pretty, because I think it's layer 14. If something's on layer 14, it will be defined as, teleport onable. But that's kind of too fancy for what we want to do. So we're just going to leave it. So I go ahead and load templates. You realize that you don't have a template for really what you want, so you go ahead and hit create new template, which creates a little web page, which I'm going to bring over here. And you can type in the name of the template, which we're going to call this LCV3 demo. We can choose a little image, which you've figured out, but I'm gonna be kind of lazy and not do that. You can go to description and give it a little description, demonstrating how to upload a SketchUp model. Then I hit create template, successfully created. So then I click edit template. Then I can go ahead and choose the zip file once I've made it. I have to define the Unity version, and you can even throw tags on for making it easier to search when they add search functionality, because they don't really have search functionality for templates, only for worlds. If I go back to Unity, now that I've done that, I can reload my templates because I've created it. I should see this LCV3 demo. So I select the LCV3 demo, and now it says selected template as LCV3 demo. Then you can just notice how it says build for Windows and build for Android. If you want to just quickly test something, you could just build for Android or just build for Windows. But normally I have such a good computer that I don't worry about it, and I just build every single time. I'd never use build and upload. That means for every world, there's two versions of that world. One is for Windows computers that, like the Oculus Rift, the Oculus Rift S, the HTC Vive. All tethered headsets are Windows. All standalone headsets like the Google Daydream, the Samsung Gear VR, the what was the other one? The Oculus Go and the Oculus Quest are Android devices, and you'll use a separate version. So some world builders get so advanced they build a high textured version for Windows users and a low textured version for Android users. Cool. So I'm going to go ahead and click build, and I don't want to put it under 3D models. I usually create a new folder in the top of my asset, or actually, yeah, and I call it alt templates. And then I go into here, and then I go ahead and type, we're going to call this LCV3 demo. Yeah, the file organization becomes very important when you're doing this kind of stuff. The more assets you have in your folders, the longer it will take to build, even if the assets aren't in the scene, which is very interesting because the reason for that is when it switches from compiling from Windows to compiling for Android, it converts all your assets to an Android version and all your assets to a Windows version. Oh, wow. Hmm. Okay. I know, right? Yeah. So, mhm. Super weird. So, yeah. Hopefully this will give you some inspiration. Because I'm taking you from step one, which is creating the Unity project, all the way through, and I haven't done anything special to the Unity thing. So all I did was say update the template, and you'll notice that my template is 1.2 megabytes for the Android version and 1.2 megabytes for the PC version. This is the number that matters, not the zip file size. Because you'll see the zip file size is 2 megabytes, one for Windows and one for Android. But, when a alt world needs to be featured on Altspace, they just care that if the template is like under 10 megabytes, um, which is going to be tough, but you don't have to worry about that in general. Mhm. All right, so now that we've done that, I'm going to go ahead and go to worlds, and I'm going to go ahead and create a new world I'm going to put under prototyping because this is me, demoing something. Create world, and I'm going to call this LCV3. All right. Oh, so up here, if you click on more, and there's worlds. So you click on worlds. Then there's a featured, popular, top, favorited, my worlds. So then you go to my worlds. And then there's home, universes, and group commons. Does yours auto go to universes? Yep. Yep. I agree. This is Altspace at their finest, making UI. That's bad. No. I've gotten it by memory at this point. And all universe is it's a folder at this point. And so like if you want to have a folder that's shared with, like your best bud with all the worlds that you do together, then that saves you the trouble of having to like add, administrator privileges to all those worlds, which is nice. Like that's a good UI decision in my opinion, but it's slightly different. I'll start a second YouTube video if we want to do that today. but um, demonstrating uploading SketchUp. Yeah. You're welcome. There's a typical private, unlisted, default contextual roles. I'm going to turn on Pilot and Terraformer because you shouldn't but I want you to be able to experience like how cool it is that you can just like walk into a world and edit things. And then go ahead and select your template. Normally there's 3 columns here, but apparently they've decided to compress. Where is it? Did I pass it already? Probably. There we go. Yeah. So the media console, because the VR Church has enough users at Tether, they should be fine to be able to make their own JSONs and be able to just copy and paste that before every service. And what's nice is I think you can intermix videos with images. So it you need to have a tethered headset as far as I'm concerned, because what you do is you like if you want to copy and paste something like a JSON file, right? So let's see, if I go under here, I go to Alt Media, and I go to this guy. This is the interactive thing. I go ahead and add an item. We're going to add a video. I go ahead and go to YouTube. And let's say I wanted to just like add this world builder Altspace video. I'm going to select share. Oh no, this is a share link. I don't want the share link. I just want the video link. So copy that at the top, paste that into there. The number of seconds that should pass before skipping to the next media, I leave blank. Volume, I leave 1. Start time, I leave at 0. Roll off distance, I leave at 0. My keyboard decides to freak out because my Alt key is missing, and so it presses the Alt key over and over again. And then and at the end, I'll just say loop. And then now I can go ahead and go to output, and it has a little red dot, which means that it probably won't work for some reason. We want loop media to be true then. We want this to be blank. There we go. So notice how I can just go and hit copy right now. And then if I go to Altspace VR, which you're going to see this whole shenanigan, you're going to see it loop infinitely pretty soon here. Then I can go to World Editor, and I can go to Basics, and like just for this example, I'm going to make a label text. Confirm. See? I just pasted it into this world. Does that make sense? Okay, so all I did was so if I go Alt Tab, I go here, I select this text, I hit Control C to copy, or right click to copy, and then I go to Alt VR, go to World Editor, Basics, Label, go here, and I hit Control V to paste. Then I hit Confirm. Mm-hmm. Yep, exactly. So then there's only 2 options. One is that you download the desktop version of Altspace onto a computer, like I'm using right now, and then you go ahead. Well, uh, I would show you, but well, what's his face? I would have to kill. So if you unplug, yeah, yeah. We'll finish up the video. That was a fun side tangent talking about the multimedia manager. Um, what do I want to do now? I want to go back to the web browser, and I want to go. So I selected the template LCV3 demo, correct? And then for my world, I set pilot and terraformer. I threw a description in there, and I'm gonna make it, you know, I'm just gonna create the world. World was successfully created. That if you see this blue banner, you're pretty much set. So now that the world's been created, I can go into Altspace, and I can go to my menu, settings, or no, menu, worlds, my worlds, and I should see a new LCV3 demo hiding somewhere in here. Yep. And now I can make a portal to it. Cool. Confirm. And the first thing you'll notice is I made one mistake, which is I left in my light. Normally, before you upload, you can just delete that light and you'll get a natural outdoor lighting. Cool? And so right now it's basically having two suns, so that's why everything's so saturated. Yeah, but at least the walls aren't too bad. It's just the ground that's crazy. And you'll notice that the brick is textured. You'll notice that you can pass through this interior wall that I did not add a collision box to. Cool? And you know, it's missing all the normal furniture that we had in the last world. So I think that's pretty cool that you had a tutorial where you got to see the end product of it.